All right, this is my first post Ohio State Buckeyes Scary Alvarez podcast I'm taping. Uh, we won't get in too much into that game, I don't think, in the context of what we're talking about today. But unfortunately, my prediction, as many people have checked in to remind me, my prediction of a Wisconsin win, as optimistic as that admittedly was at the time, is not looking as quite as sterling as it did Saturday about 6:15. So I appreciate everyone who's taken the time to dip into that thread to tell me how stupid I am. Anyway, this is the Scary Alvarez podcast. I'm Scary Alvarez, Wine Island enjoyer, Sherry Wine destroyer, Jake's grandpa, touchdown for Jake this week, and Cindy's +1 when she'll have me. And very excited to have Xander and help me here. O'Shaughley, I want to make sure I got the name right.
Ostaffe.
Oh, okay, so I'm mixing it with the golfer.
Yes, you are. Yes. Hey,
Okay, well,
I,
hey,
I
let me,
always root for him just because the name.
it's a good one. If there were a golfer named Scary Alvarazo or something, he'd definitely be my first guy on the tour. But thank
He'd
you
probably
so
be the
much
best.
for jumping on today, Xander. I appreciate that. And for purposes of kind of setting this up to my audience, Xander has been deeply active in the Area Red group, which is the preeminent Wisconsin Badger fan group across a number of different sports. I'm going to have Xander kind of, go into his background with that group. He's now an alumni of that group, so he's like the old school guy who comes back uh, and crashes on their couch when he comes back into town for games. But Xander, why don't you kind of explain for my audience what Area Red is, and then what your role and responsibility was for that organization when you were attending Madison?
Yeah. So and thanks for having me on. A great opportunity to talk about this.
You
Um,
got it. I appreciate it. This is a hot topic on a lot of boards, and I'm glad you
yeah.
could hop on with me today with short notice because I really want to get this out there for the fans.
Yeah. So Area Red is the official student section of Wisconsin. So covering the main sports, football and basketball. And then we kind of have branches with hockey, the Crease Creatures, and with volleyball, the Madhouse, and with soccer, the Colony, and things like that. And so all under the branch of Area Red, the student section. And so my role, I was the membership director, and so I was in charge of a lot of recruitment for people on committees, kind of setting a lot of different events up for people. I kind of had my fingerprints on a lot of different sports, just helping out pregame with basketball and with volleyball, getting there several hours before tip off just to try and get things set up. Doing a lot of brainstorming for different giveaways, which Wisconsin athletics really they were really helpful with that. They were really open to pretty much all of our ideas, and most of our successful giveaways were student ideas. And so that kind of I'm not going to take credit for any of the giveaways. That was a lot of the basketball committee, but just kind of connecting students to um, other directors for Area Red. So basketball, football, hockey, all the different sports. Um, just kind of connecting students so that we can kind of be the liaison between the student body and athletics, and kind of want what the students want out of games.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I appreciate that. And so hypothetically, let's say there's a kickoff at 11 a.m. for football. Would you be deputized by the athletic department to actually go into dorms or fraternity houses or student apartments, go in and drag these kids out of bed so they can get on their way to Camp Randall? Is that part
No,
of
but
the
I wish.
responsibility?
Well,
Okay.
it seems like it feels like that sometimes, and
Yeah, yeah.
Area Red certainly got blamed for things like that when that's not
Well,
really how
good.
it goes.
Well, here's this is the elephant in the room, and obviously we're going to talk about football, we're going to talk about basketball, we're going to talk about some other sports that have been maybe a little more successful as far as the fandom stuff with like volleyball and some of the other ones. But I want to say before we get going that anything I'm hinting on right now, I don't want you and your organization to take this as any sort of personal shot. These are grown ass adults that you all are
Yep.
trying to rally to go to the games. These
Hmm.
people can get there whenever they want to and wait in lines as long as they want to. But as you will see, I'm not. There's a blame the kids state, group of people, and there's a let's look at the procedures with how we do things group. And I think there's a little bit of
Hmm.
both, but I think it's probably more on the procedure part. And I'm going to tell you what my feelings are on this. But what I want to start with is football. Okay, so we just played Ohio State, obviously a tough, hard fought game. The Badgers were in it there in the second half, and tough loss against a very very good team. But as many people noted, especially early on in that first quarter, that student section was still not nearly full. And
Yeah.
it's in a night game, and I was bragging to everyone, big game boomer, like just wait, buddy. 6:30 Ohio State kickoff. That's going to be rocking. Because I'm thinking 2010 because it was full in 2010. So
Hmm.
let's go up 10,000 feet. And it doesn't have to be the Ohio State game. It can be any home game. It can be an 11 a.m. game against Indiana, as we're about to see. But tell my viewers and listeners here what the process is to get into Camp Randall and get seated, because I think a lot of them have the mistaken perception this is lazy kids kind of striding in at the last second, kind of filling in wherever they want to. But the reality is it's a much different situation. So set the scene for me.
Yeah, just before I kind of set the scene, I do want to say that these are just like my experiences and my opinions through the last 4 years. They don't necessarily reflect what Area Red and their opinions now. I am an alum, like you said, so I just want to just start there.
I appreciate that, and by the way, I'm glad you said that. And I alluded to this before, like, a little bit earlier in the show. None of my suggestions here are saying that there aren't people in the athletic department that are doing their damnedest to make this want to work. So this is
Hmm.
not a let's throw the athletic department on the bus thing. That's not it at all. But we are, and we're about to flip to November in 2023, and I want to get to what the real situation is on the ground and the things that we can do to try and make this a better situation in football. And then I'm going to get to basketball a little bit as well. But I'm sorry, you just continue on, Xander. Let us know how that works.
Yeah, so how it works is students come into one gate, and there's only one gate that student tickets are accepted. So they're all 14,000 students. Um, have to go through one gate, and for the rest of the stadium, that's not how that works. You can go in to any gate with any ticket, and so that already creates a bit of a problem when students, even if you're coming in a half an hour before kickoff, you may not get to your seat by the time
Right.
the game starts, because what they're doing is you can choose what section you want to be in, with the exception of sections O and P, and I'll get to that in a second, why that
Okay.
is. But for I think K through or K or which ones is it now? I always sat in
And
N, O, or P,
and
so I don't know
yeah,
which ones are, but
it's
all
okay.
the
We,
other
we, we know.
ones, yeah, yeah, all the other ones, you can choose which one you go to, but once you get to there, you have members of CSC. They're kind of like the security, uh, people that work. They're the ones with the yellow and blue shirts on and all of that. They're lining you up one by one, row by row, in every single section, and that takes a long time, and it's a really tedious
Mhm.
process. And it gets to the point where once you get closer to kickoff, you have CSC blowing whistles to when students can start moving again and stop. It's like you're
Okay.
at a stop sign or you're at a traffic
Yeah.
light. It gets
Yeah.
ridiculous.
Let me. I'm hearing what you're saying, and my blood is boiling because I know this is the way it is. But I'm hearing you say it. So let's say it's 15 minutes before kickoff. You've been in line for a half an hour already. This doesn't sound like anything unreasonable. You got to the stadium a half an hour, 45 minutes early. You're not dilly dallying, dicking around on Breeze Terrace like most kids were in the 90s, and still got there on time because of a different situation I'll tell you about. So you can be in that line, and you're sitting in the bowels of the stadium in a single file line, waiting for that next crossing
Yeah.
guard to let you through
Yeah.
to the next. Okay, So
And the
let me play
reason,
devil's
oh,
advocate.
sorry.
Let me play devil's advocate. I'm going to continue to tell us how this goes. Well, Xander, you know that's the way it is, right? So why don't you just get to the game a half an hour earlier? What do you say to that?
Well, I think that there are a lot of people that do get there early. Obviously, not as much as I think anyone would like, but a lot of people have to understand that um, what Madison is and what the college town is, especially at an 11 a.m. game. Um, it's early, yeah, but a lot of people are trying to get a buzz that can stay for the whole game because they're not selling alcohol at the stadium unless you are either in a suite or in the south end zone. And the
Yeah,
south
I
end
get it.
zone
I
seats
get it
are
when I went.
quite a bit of money, and
Yeah,
that students don't have access to that, and most of the 80,000 people at Camp Randall don't have access to that.
gotcha, gotcha.
So
Okay,
a lot of
I'm
people, a lot
checking
of
this.
people are tailgating and partying.
Yes, and I don't. Let me be very clear about this. As a Wisconsin fan for decades now, as you know, and of course, an athletic director as well, and an icon, a
Hmm.
legend. No one on my watch should have to apologize for partying before a football game. Should have to apologize for wanting to enjoy of course, if they're legal age, a crisp, delicious beer in the confines of a football stadium while enjoying and rooting for their favorite team.
Exactly. It's college. It's meant to be fun.
Yeah, agreed, agreed. So you have this, and I think I'm not sure we're painting the right picture. These are kids who most of them have gotten there on time or early,
Hmm.
and you're in this single file line that's moving like you're waiting to buy tickets at before a Duke game or something for basketball. You're
Hmm.
like you get a tent or
Oh
something.
yeah.
You're not able to enjoy and talk to your friends. You're sitting in the single file line inside the stadium, and then finally you peek out and you're in the stadium area and you want to be in your seat, but you're behind 200, 300, 400 other kids who are being seated row by row, methodically slow by these wonderful employees, I'm sure, but these people in yellow
Hmm.
things. Okay. So
Yeah.
when the kickoff happened against Ohio State at 6:30, and that student section was about 60% full, or maybe a little less, how many students do you think were in line waiting to be couldn't be in the seat because they were sitting in a line somewhere, waiting to get in?
I'd say I would say at least when kickoff happened, I'd say there were at least 1,000 or a couple
Okay.
thousand. It just across all the sections, that line will go from the the beginning of each section all the way
Uh,
down the concourse, down the stairs to the beginning of where tickets are handed out to students because you
okay.
scan your ticket and then they give you a physical ticket.
So it was a pretty robust number. And
Yeah.
then to get to the other part of this equation, because it isn't all, by my calculations, even if every one of those kids could have been seated exactly like they could have snapped a finger and they're all in seating, it still probably wasn't going to be totally full because there are some stragglers. Is that fair to say? I mean, is that
Oh yeah,
so? It's
that's
not
absolutely fair to say. That's absolutely fair to
okay.
say.
What would you say if you can estimate the percentage of that student section that if waiting wasn't an issue, that could be full at kickoff versus how it is now? I'm guessing it's substantially more full. Is that fair?
Oh yeah, I would absolutely think it. I think it would be a lot more full. I mean, just as an example, I actually went to the Nebraska Wisconsin game last year in Lincoln, and that getting into the student section there, it's one gate, but then everybody just disperses to an entire student section,
Right.
sitting wherever you want. Um, Not everybody needs to be in the front row. They kind of sit with their friends wherever they want, and it was really fast, and I was shocked
Yeah.
because it's just
Well,
that's a blue blood like Nebraska. So
I feel uncomfortable calling them a blue blood, but I understand what you're saying there, Xander.
well, yeah,
Yeah, I mean they
a
blue.
blue, yeah,
They're a
yeah,
blue blood who hasn't won anything in 25, 30 years. But anyway, let's
yeah.
get back to the point in hand. And it's that dovetails very nicely into what I was going to suggest. I've advocated this on Twitter. I've advocated this on this show before, talking to people. But when I started out in 1990, and then for several years after, many years after, there was an open seating policy in the student section for Wisconsin games.
Hmm.
And whereas some of those games in 1990, the crowds were a little less robust than we would have liked based on that 1 in 10 team, and that was Don Morton 1 in 10. I don't accept that 1 in 10 my first year. Um, Once we got this program with its feet under it to where it was the Badger program the modern Wisconsin Badger program we recognize, 92, 93, 94, that open seating at kickoff, doesn't matter what damn game it was full, if not totally full, pretty damn close to full. And I'm telling you, that open seating was the key. And it wasn't like you opened the seating and there was a crowd stampede like after the Michigan game in '93. Yeah, there are going to be kids who want to sit in O in the middle, some who want to sit in P down low, some who want to be up top so they can take their flasks out and do it. It's okay. It's open for all kinds. But the one commonality that I noticed, and I see no reason in 2023 why it could not be the exact same situation today, whether there is one student entrance like you described in Nebraska, or whether
Hmm.
students can come in any damn entrance they want to, because who cares? It doesn't
Yeah.
matter.
Yeah.
Um,
And
Combine
the
those things, let those kids stand because they're going to be standing in most cases in whatever part of that student section that they want to. So there are no more long lines in the bowels of Camp Randall. And you can like no running. There can be rules. There can be a little, you get a T-shirt if you don't run or something. Who knows? There can be all kinds of things you can make this work, but you're not putting it in the hands of some part-time security guard. Just seat these people like they're in a kindergarten class.
hmm
That is, by my observation, and it seems to be echoed by the things, Xander, that you are telling me, having experienced that yourself as a student recently, that we are just doing it the wrong way. And 80% of the problem that we have can be eliminated with the snap of a fist or snap of a finger. Is
yeah,
that do you think that's an accurate 10,000-foot assessment of what's going on?
I think that's extremely accurate. I think that it would eliminate a lot of the issues with people trying to, it's like herding cattle, but it's just the slowest process. If people could just sit wherever they wanted immediately, I don't think that you would have the issue of students even when they're at the game before kickoff, they're not able to be seated until halfway through the first quarter. And I just think that that's just the most ridiculous thing. I don't know
Yeah,
any
no,
other major program that has that issue.
I don't think there is one. And that the insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. I'm not sure if that's
Yeah.
Einstein or it could have been me. Who knows? And again, these Macintosh's people, these are really, really smart and savvy sports people. These are not
Hmm.
fall off the turnip cart kind of people. They are smart enough. We've seen in obviously much different contexts bold strokes that has shown thought and foresight and planning and boldness. And this is a tiny little thing compared to like getting a Luke Fickle hire, for example. This
Yeah.
doesn't require secrecy or all those things that you credit Macintosh for doing, for getting that incredible hire that he did, or Hastings, same kind of thing. We'll get to hockey in a
Yeah.
minute.
Yeah.
I just think someone needs to put your hands up in that department over on Monroe Street and go, you know what? It ain't working. Let's listen to Scary Alvarez and Xander,
Of course.
and let's because I joke, but we're obviously not the only people that are saying this. But
No, not
let's
absolutely
take a
not.
different turn now. Maybe it isn't open seating. Well, let's see. Is there something between open seating and the way it is now? Yes. Maybe we can let these kids in through two entrances. Maybe we can have a little bit more of a faster line where we're not hurting them like they're kindergartners. There
Hmm.
are all kinds of things on this continuum between open seating, run and get your seat, which I personally love, and the way it's being done now. And anything that could be done is better than what is being done right now. I don't want to put any nuance into this. This is crazy that we're doing this over and over again. And I don't.
Yeah.
And you know what? It can start before the Indiana game. We can start it right now. You can save money on these guys in yellow. You can have them go have additional popcorn things. I mean, so all the things that we can do with the procedural stuff, we don't have to get into like selling beer and things like that might get that last 20% to get there earlier
Yeah.
because that's a second issue. you know, do you, what we think doesn't matter. Of course, it does matter what I think, but
Yeah.
would beer sales get that last 20% of kids who are trying to hang out on Breeze Terrace a little longer to get into that new line that now people can just go and do open seating? Do you think that's a reasonable solution?
I think that I'm hopeful that that would actually that would work. I think that there are a lot of students, like I said, like they're trying to just get that buzz for the whole game because you know, sometimes there are a lot of students who enjoy the college football atmosphere that know nothing about football and don't care about football. And but they go to the games and they have a good time. But the moment that that buzz is gone, they unfortunately they don't care, and a lot of them they end up leaving early, and that's a
Yeah.
shame. And I think that that alcohol sales, and I hope that it works well with what's going on at the Kohl Center because it sounds like that's that. I hope that this is the trial run for Camp
Yeah.
Randall because I do think that it would make a big difference.
That's some good beta testing we're going to be doing at Cole. Let me back up a little bit. I understand there's kind of a situation of ideal and reality with those students who need the beer buzz to enjoy the football game. I do feel the need to say though that it shouldn't in a perfect world it shouldn't take a beer buzz to let you stay for the end of a 3 hour and 15 minutes, or even shorter than they used to be because they run the clock now after first downs. A 3 hour and 15-minute football game, you shouldn't need the sauce to you shouldn't
Yeah,
need to go home to get the sauce
yeah,
because you should stay at that game. But in a broader sense, beer's fun. I mean, I'm not saying there aren't problems and people don't drive drunk. There's all those things, but that's society. It's like let's close liquor stores then. I mean, so
yeah,
having a little bit of alcohol at the Wisconsin games, and if that keeps some of those kids who are admittedly fringe kids in terms of the main group who are fans, but if it keeps more coherence, I think that's okay with me. So I do think we should have alcohol sales of some sort at the football games. And I am curious to see how it's going to go at basketball. I think it's going to go great. I don't think
yeah.
there's
I
going to
do
be any
too.
issue. These aren't like kids are coming. Oh, these impressionable young college students are gonna they're gonna see beer and there's gonna be peer pressure at the football games and kids are gonna
Yeah,
start drinking. I mean, let's be
let's
realistic
be
here.
serious here. Yeah,
Yeah, they're sneaking this in colostomy bags. I mean, come on, man. I mean, this is like let's be real here. And for some reason, I say kids, 21-year-olds can't have it, but like it's okay if you're a 45-year-old building contractor with an expensive seat, you get to pound the whole game. I mean, I just don't understand why that needs to exist, why the difference needs to exist. I don't begrudge anyone their beer, anyone in the stadium. Trust me, I enjoy a nice sherry wine during that game. But
there you
okay,
go.
I think we're making some progress here. I'm hoping Macintosh just gives us the okay to make these policies good, if not before the Indiana game for 2024. Let's segue really quick to basketball because basketball has a different set of things going on than football. And let me see if I can lay out sort of the cliched observation. The students, they're not loud like they used to be. The student section, some of it is empty in games when it didn't used to be empty. The people who are non-students who get the good seats or the better seats are sitting on their hands doing golf claps a few times a game, unless it's like Purdue in the last 5 minutes. Um, Give me your kind of state of the union. We'll take alcohol out of the equation for now. We don't know what the effect of that's going
Yeah.
to be, but let me get your 10,000 foot view as an ex area red guy about the state of the union for basketball student sections specifically and the Kohl Center fandom generally, and what you think can be, if anything, improved with that.
Yeah, so I do think the student section, there are there have been issues, especially with some of like the especially the 11 a.m. tip offs. Those are pretty tough, on Saturday mornings or Sunday mornings. And what kind of happens is that we have, I think, about 2,000, around 2,000 student section seats, and they're all on one side of the court, 100, 200, 300 level. And so a lot of people think that it might not sound as loud, but that's because we also have a pro sized arena. You
Yeah.
get to, you know, we, it, that's that. a lot of people don't realize that the Kohl Center has a capacity of like I think 100 less than Pfizer Forum. Pfizer Forum
Yeah.
is massive, and we have a capacity of about 17,000, and when you have students up in the 300 level, um, uh, there's just not as much, I guess, incentive uh, to go to games if you're either not wanting to go early or you're not getting there early. I think there's kind of like a lack of um, I don't know if I want to say culture, but there's just some sort of disconnect there that a lot of students don't seem to they don't seem to be getting that
They're not
getting to games
engaged.
early. Yeah, they're just
Okay.
not engaged all the
Is the
time.
line is the line thing? Educate my listeners here who don't know. Is there any analogous line issue in basketball games at the Kohl Center that there is in Camp Randall with the football?
I wouldn't say so. You still, all the students can still only go in through one gate, but it's a pretty quick process. You just scan your ticket. They give you an they give you an assigned ticket, and that's the thing. So once you get your assigned ticket, I could be in section 114, row row B, seat 4, right? And so once I get my ticket, I can walk around the concourse, do whatever I want.
Okay.
Um, uh, you know, but most of the time, students are getting there and then they're going to their seat, but they're not herding you in line by line. You used to be able to request what section
Uh-huh.
you were in. I think it was 114, 115, 116. Those are and the 200, 300 levels after that. Um, but you can it's just not they're not hurting you in, they're not
Right.
blowing the whistle. It's a
Okay.
lot it's a
It's more
lot
simple.
better.
It's more
Yeah,
simple. Yeah,
way
I mean,
more
the
simple.
numbers are certainly smaller, so I understand that argument. But okay, so we got. Let's say it's an average Big Ten game. I'm not talking about a game against Purdue and Purdue's number one or something. I'm saying an average. Let's say you're playing Rutgers Saturday 11 a.m. Both good
That's an
teams. Nothing.
interesting time.
Yeah, no, but I'm trying to work at the best case, worst case scenarios.
Yeah.
At tip off, what percentage of that student section's full?
Well, that's funny you say that because that is exactly what happened when Lily's Classic happened last year, and Lily's Classic is a big um, fundraiser slash Darty that starts in the morning, and it's a big fundraiser that one of the frats puts on, um, and I can't remember. I don't know if it's for childhood cancer or what it's a really they raise thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. It's like a pond hockey tournament, and it's also the biggest excuse to go drink on the frozen Lake Mendota. And
Uh,
so, quite unfortunately, that was on the same time as 11 a.m. Rutgers.
okay.
So
Okay.
we
That was
they
not. That was
got
not. Okay.
that got a lot, but in general, 11 a.m. Rutgers kind of with good team, but not like a super big game. It's not Purdue, like you said. It's not Michigan State or anything like that. I'd say maybe 300 level doesn't get full, so
Mhm.
whatever
A
that
third.
means. I
Okay.
2/3 full maybe. I know that I think there's more 100 level seats than there are 200 and 300, but
Right.
I'd say the third deck probably doesn't get full, or probably doesn't even get any students in it.
Yeah. So here, I wanted you to set that scene, and obviously we're all familiar with kind of the. I don't want. There are a lot of great Wisconsin fans who sit in those primo seats. A lot of great, long time, loud, boisterous Wisconsin fans, but there
Oh
are a
yeah,
lot who are not. It is
yes,
pretty rough sometimes. So here is my suggestion. Again, this is easier for me to do now that I'm retired from the flight department. But look, University of Texas, the Longhorns, who are actually playing a D2 team that were losing last time I looked, which is kind of funny. But um, they had a gigantic whole center like, although not as nice, arena they used to play in called the Drum, and their home games. Granted, they had some cruddy teams. Wisconsin's had more success in recent years, obviously,
Yep.
than Texas last year, notwithstanding. But it was just a total disconnect. The student section was kind of like okay, and it was just awful. And then before last season, they have a new arena, a new on-campus arena, much smaller, and they have this ability to kind of section off certain areas that they can open up, like for a Bon Jovi concert. They don't have as many sections open, so they can make it the size they want. And then they took those students and they put them on the side of the court, like a la Duke or some of these other things. Michigan
Yeah.
State, Michigan
Yeah.
does that too.
Yeah.
And
The
I'm going
zone.
to tell you, I have sources who've gone to games, and I know the team was better last year. I understand that, but like it is a completely different product, a completely different home court advantage. Having those students feel like they're a part of the game on top of the opposing players, basically. So that's just one example, and it's anecdotal. But wherever they do it, it works. And I'm telling you, it's. I understand there are season ticket holders and donors, and they're going to be pissed. But if you love the Badger program enough to donate thousands of dollars and buy season tickets, you can sit in a slightly worse seat when you know those kids are going to be cheering their ass off,
Hmm.
helping that team to a victory. Some of those 3-point losses can turn into 3-point wins just like that. I'm telling you, that's magical. So I am suggesting right here, Xander, and I want your take on this, that Wisconsin start the exploration of the process of moving that student section to the sides of the Kohl Center. God knows it's big enough. You can get the students down there. Yes, it's not right on top of the court like some places, but it's close enough where it'll make a big difference. How does that wash over you?
I think that would be super awesome. I do think that the students would kind of have to prove that they'll be loud and that they'll show up, but I don't think that it would be the end of the world to have that at a trial game. And I know that it's probably too late this season to kind of set that up at an exhibition game. Like I think we play Eau Claire on
Yeah.
uh, Wednesday or sometime in the next week. But I do think that would be awesome. I even know that to kind of add on to that, and instead of just doing around the court like some of the other schools do during the Kohl Center Classic last year. For volleyball, the student section was both ends of the court. So just instead of the one end that the students are on right now, on the other side, they also had the 100, 200, and 300 levels full of students, and it was awesome. Like that was by and far the loudest I think I've ever heard the Kohl Center, including when we beat Purdue for the Big Ten championship in
Yeah.
2022. It
Well,
was
that's a
it
good.
was the
Yeah.
best.
So kind of like the football situation with the seating that we discussed, maybe basketball, there's a continuum as well, where we have full both sides courtside seats for students at one end, kind of like the open fill, open seating, and then maybe somewhere that's not quite as drastic as that, we can have bring the kids down maybe from the 300s and put them in the 100s on opposite sides of the court. So you have the kids spinning the wheel and doing the current distraction or whatever. I know that's Arizona, but
Yeah,
doing crazy
yeah.
stuff, making them feel like they're closer, because I've never been a fan per se, but as I've heard, the closer you are to the court, the more a part of it you feel. I think that's basic
Oh,
psychology.
definitely, definitely.
So I just and even if whether it's that or whether it's the kids on the sidelines in the primo seats, again, not every student seat has to be in those areas. Like the Texas situation I told you about, not every student seat is courtside, but they do have these specified student groups that are just bananas, and they have themes and they dress a certain way in certain games, and it's such a cool thing to see, to go from arguably one of the least home court advantages in all of college and major sports to one of the toughest places to play. And I
Yeah.
think the Kohl Center could potentially become that as well. And I do think we're going to transition to other sports here. I do think that Kohl Center, which has been cavernous for hockey, is going to become a huge asset in the near future for Mike Hastings' team, based in no small part to how good that team is playing. I know it's hard to get as excited for a team that wins 6 games in a year, but we can go back to basketball, football, but hockey, both women's hockey, they play different facilities, but women's hockey and men's hockey. What's your thoughts on the student situations going forward in both of those venues?
So for the Laban for women's hockey, I know that they've really leaned into the beer sales. I think that they started building. The students started building up kind of beer pyramids on the glass, and at the end of the game, I don't know who started it, but
Yeah.
they looked at each other. They pointed at the glass, and they race. The girls race to knock it over at the end of the game, and so they've really leaned into that.
Okay.
And I think that that's been like I think that's been really awesome. There's some really cool pictures out there of the beer pyramids that even Wisconsin Athletics took pictures of and posted it on their own
Yeah.
pages.
It's
Uh,
the reality.
so
It's reality.
yeah, yeah,
Kids love
it's
it.
fun. It's fun.
Xander, Xander, let me tell you, before the Kohl Center and LeBron were a thing, and this was before the women's program was as robust. The Wisconsin Badgers played at a place called the Dane County Coliseum. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that.
Is
Big
that
cavernous. It's down by John Nolan Drive by the Beltline. It's where they used to play before they moved to the Kohl Center. It
yeah,
was huge, cavernous, bright. The acoustics weren't great. It was like just a gigantic thing, but they packed that damn thing, and it's some of its success. I understand they had a better team consistently then, but they had open beer sales. I mean, it was something called the beer
yeah,
garden, in between. And granted, you could smoke then too. It was a different time. It was like
yeah,
the 80s
yeah,
and 90s, but and also it was a downtime for Wisconsin basketball and a downtime for Wisconsin football. So that was the Wisconsin sport. So there's a
sure,
few things that were some wins they had their backs there, but I think Wisconsin hockey fandom is a sleeping tiger right now. I think it is. We could have potentially the best fans in all college, and we do certainly for the women's program, but for the men's program as well. Once they get that winning thing going, and you got I just think that the Kohl Center, despite they do shut off some of it, but I think the Kohl Center, if this team keeps winning the way it's winning, is going to be bananas this year for the men's team. I
yeah.
think it's going to
Oh,
turn into a wild party again.
I totally agree, and some of that is due to the success or lack thereof the last several years, and the success now. I mean, I think I saw you tweeted earlier something about who would have thought that we'd be top five team before November. I mean, what Mike Hastings has done has just been unbelievable. He's turned everything around. I think so much faster than anybody could have expected. And I do think that that'll drive more students in. Everybody loves to hate on Michigan. What better way to do it than to show up to a weekend series, a top five matchup for the first time in a long time at the Kohl
Yeah.
Center.
It's crazy. Yeah, for those who don't know, Wisconsin is hosting the number five Badgers. They're hosting the number four Wolverines, uh, who's basically an NHL factory for the last several years, in a series. And you look whether Wisconsin sweeps Michigan or whether Wisconsin gets swept or they split, that's not going to take away from what Hastings has done in the face of the hardest schedule in NCAA hockey this season. They have the hardest strength of schedule after this weekend. Wisconsin will have
Yeah.
had the hardest strength of schedule. They played North Dakota already. They had a tough series against a ranked Michigan Tech team at the time. Of
Yep.
course, going up into Minneapolis and sweeping the Gophers, which is I don't know this, but it has to have been a tremendous amount of years since they last went up there and swept Minnesota. I'm
Yeah.
talking decades, even with some of those NCAA tournament teams they've had. That's crazy. But anyway, I'm excited about the hockey program. And lastly, I want to touch on volleyball because volleyball, for until fairly recently, even though we had some really really solid teams in the 2009 2010, wasn't the phenomenon that it is now. And it was a phenomenon even before they broke through and won the national title in 2021. For someone who's never been to a volleyball game, just give a sense for how incredible that experience is and what that's like for a fan.
Yeah. Oh, I think it's the best. It's absolutely the best volleyball atmosphere in the nation. I think it's the hardest place to play in the Big Ten, one of the hardest places to play in the nation. Um, I think it's about. I think the field house is like 8 or 9,000 capacity, but it is just so loud in there. At everybody is always just getting up and being loud. The student section, the Madhouse actually started officially only a couple of years ago, and in the first official year, I think of the Madhouse, it was 2021, and we won the whole thing. So it was a really awesome kind of thing to experience. But just to kind of put it, just to paint the scene here, even though we lost in the Elite Eight last year against Pitt in the fifth set, we had a big comeback that was stopped, unfortunately, just short. But at the time, we were leading in the fifth set, and it got so loud every single point during the fifth set that the Pitt coach knew that when we took the lead, that it was going to be loud, and he plugged his ears. And I've never seen a coach do that in any college, in college basketball, football, volleyball. I've never seen a coach have to plug his ears because it was so loud in an arena like it was that day.
Yeah, that's great stuff, and certainly, if things go the right way with our suggestions today, Xander, uh,
Yeah.
maybe we'll have something like that with basketball and football. We could go all day on this. I do appreciate your time. I'm going to
Yeah.
wrap it up, but again, thank you so much for jumping on with us today. And I think the two of us have, I say single-handedly, but certainly as a committee, we have come up with things that will completely turn the tide on Wisconsin student section for both basketball and football, and hopefully they'll make a statue for you, Xander, as well. You can stand right next to the scary Alvarez statue. How tall are you?
I'm 6'1".
You're 6'1", so it's going to be like 3 or 4 inches shorter than mine, and it's okay. It's fine. Dana Recky's is going to be even shorter, but it's fine. We'll keep you. Don't hold your breath for this. It's way good to have to work its way through the bureaucracy, but anyway, we'll put our suggestions too. And like I said, this athletic department is doing an incredible job, and I know they got bigger fish to fry, but certainly I'm putting my weight behind making some common sense changes. Certainly, if nothing else, starting first with the football games.
Mm-hmm.
If not this year, then next year, so we can avoid having this problem. It's not going to be T-shirt giveaways or shooting T-shirt cannons. It's not going to be coupons for Mickey's Dairy Bar. They have to change the system, and
Yeah.
until someone realizes that and then decides that it's time to change a system, that problem is going to be the same problem. You're not going to change hearts and minds until that system is changed. Even with beer, even with beer, I don't think it's going to change the start of game thing.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be still an issue. So, anyway, thanks for jumping on. Hope you can catch you into that fantastic Monday Night Football game that's going on tonight. It's just some good stuff. Definitely do not give me an update on that. I just don't know. But thanks for hopping on, and see you around the Camp Randall and the Kohl Center.
All right. It was great talking with you, Coach.